All right, welcome everybody. I'll call this meeting to order. It is 9:02 a.m. And Harvey, just as soon as you're ready, if you would call.
Director Bradley,
Here.
Director Bruns,
Here.
Director Cardenas,
Here.
Director Daly,
Here.
Director Keatley, here, Director Litvak, here, Director Olson,
Present.
Director Peterson,
Here.
Director Prokopis,
Here.
Director Silversmith,
Here.
Director Stevenson.
Here. Thank you. All right, moving to public comments. Do we have any public comments in the room today? Do we have any online public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the UPD update from Sheriff Rivera.
Good morning, everyone. Not too much to update. Well, this chair was breastfeeding. My chin's gonna because I just saw you guys. A little bit, just a couple of updates. So it's summertime. We're really busy doing some events. We're gonna get out there and do some parades. Just, wanted to say thank you to all of you who invite us to your events. We love to go. We try to manage it to where somebody in command will be there. But we just appreciate the invites. If you do have events, please make sure you let us know. And then also I just came back from Major County Sheriff's Conference, and one of the hot topics is fentanyl. And just want to put that on your radar, that fentanyl across the nation is really becoming a big problem for all law enforcement. So you may see down the road where we're looking at different ways to try to find funding to help combat that issue. I just read in our watch command log while I was gone, that one of our officers, actually a sergeant, saved a life using Narcan. Had to use it three times on the individual. So I don't know what kind of drug he was on, but it had to be some kind of opioid. Narcan works that way. But that's the reality we're in right now, and very lethal to law enforcement as well. So we're taking all the precautions that we can, and we'll just beginning with command to keep them updated on what's going on across the nation. That's about all I have. I'm here to answer any questions that you have for me. Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So, Sheriff, I just want to thank the cadets. Thank you and the cadets for sending the cadets to our community events. I think that looks like they're having fun, and it looks like, and I know that our community enjoyed meeting them. And it's also great to see that you had some new young faces coming through the ranks. So that's awesome.
Yeah, they're our best recruiters for sure.
Any other questions, comments for sure?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Finance Committee update.
Yeah. Most of the discussions we had in our financial committee, which was on the 6th, we dealt with those at the board meeting. It was just a day or two after that. So really not much to report on there. Today we will be going over the reviewing the purchasing policy that was also discussed at the financial committee. So there's not much to report because we're already started this board.
Any questions for Great. Item 5, approval of updated purchasing policy resolution 230602. And
Mr. Chair, board members, it's been a while since we've updated the purchasing policy, and we felt that it was necessary to look at it. We debated whether we should wait until the restructuring was complete, but we've got a full year ahead of us. The thresholds were low, they were a little encumbering. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, and so we thought where we could reduce some of that workload, we need to go ahead and move forward with this. The policy does reference the sheriff in here, because the sheriff is still part of the organization for the upcoming year. But once the restructuring is complete, we can amend that as needed. So Amanda did a lot of work on the policy. We reviewed it, we went over it, but she did most of the work on it, so I.
Good morning. So, as Debbie said, we have this purchasing policy for your consideration. So, we brought it before the finance committee last week. And, one of the questions that came up was from Mayor Stevenson regarding the utility services exception, specifically telephone that's, written in the policy. I've spoken with tech services and, we use a network, a voice over internet provider network to provide telephone and internet. And so there are currently 2 locations that have one provider only. That's the Range and in Kearns, although I guess Kearns is going to have another option. So telephone can stay, perhaps telecommunications would be more appropriate. So that encompasses more, especially when we use a network to provide those services. However, it does state in the exception that, you know, this exception can be granted, however, not when alternative supplies and services are available. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank
Okay, great. Besides that, just like Debbie said, the big change to this policy would be the purchasing thresholds. We would request that our small cost purchase increase from 1,000 to 5,000. And our bid threshold to increase from 10,000 to 20,000. And we did look at other agencies as well as member cities to see what they use, what their threshold was. And we feel that this is in line with other agencies as well.
Questions or comments?
Where's the or the communications, the telephone piece or the utility piece that you were speaking to?
It is at the bottom of page 2.
Okay,
Yes.
I found it. Are you recommending we change that to telecommunications?
Yes, after talking with tech services, I feel that that's more appropriate.
Okay,
So we would just change telephone to the word tele.
Yes.
so I'll make a motion to approve the updated policy with that change at the bottom of page 2 from telephone to telecommunications.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you so much. All right, item 6, resolution 230603 to ratify retirement and transfer of Officer Jinx and express gratitude for her service. I'm gonna sit in the small chair.
So we are looking for the approval of the retirement and transfer of K9 Jinx to Officer Jen Ziegel. The dog developed some medical issues which were repaired on advice of the veterinarian. They said if you put this dog back in service, it's a permanently critical dog. So we don't want to do that for obvious reasons. So we're asking if you would approve that. And Jinx can retire and enjoy the rest of her days.
I'm only disappointed that when we do these honorings that we don't get the dog in here first.
Yeah. Next time we do that, for sure, we should. Good idea. Oh, wait, how old is Jake? 3.5. 3.5, yeah, that's awesome. It's pretty young, I think. But yeah, I mean, police service dogs, I mean, they have high drives and they train very hard, so their service life tends to be kind of short, but yeah, Jinx is only 3.5, so. I think it's the right thing to do.
Questions, comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the retirement of Jinx and thank Jinx for service and also to Jinx's handbook too. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes.
Thank you.
Give Jinx our best. Cool. All right, item 7. fiscal year 2022 to 2023 final budget amendments. Sure, clear that.
That might look better. Thanks. Received, I believe you sent this out, right? The budget amendments.
Did we send it out? I don't think so.
Are you just gonna pull it up on the screen? Okay. I'll just turn it. I don't
Do
know.
we-
So she can-
Do you want us to make copies?
Yeah.
Would you guys like a copy?
Well, those online are gonna need something too, but. Does this work for you? If not, we'll get copies for each bit. You just have to turn around and look at the screen.
I think this works for now, and that changes.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Chair, council members. As you know, budget amendments are necessary throughout the fiscal year, and that's to ensure that we're in compliance with Utah code. And then amendments, the final amendment to the budget must be presented and adopted by the governing board for the last day of the fiscal year. And as you can guess on this last one, it's a doozy. So I tried to color, because there's 4 pages worth here, I tried to color coordinate some of the ones that cross across several funds, and then within the department. So the first ones that we've got here are some non-cash donations. We had the 2 iPad minis that were presented at the March 16th board meeting, but that came in after the last budget amendment, so it's being included in this one now. We also had the 32-inch smart TV that came in. It was a camera for the drone, and that was presented at the May 18th board meeting. We received a payment from honorary guards, honorary colonels, I'm sorry, the honorary colonels each year. And so this year we got an additional 6,000. That is going to be used to pay for the National Police Week and the annual awards ceremony that's going to be coming up. And then we're going to appropriate about 1,500 into next year's budget for a Halloween party. And that's found on the second page. So with those, let's see, we also are reducing a transfer from Mill Creek for 2 of the shelter officers, because we've got adjusted figures on those, and so we're adjusting that down. So with that, the expenditures that those revenue items are going to cover are again, the non-cash donations are going to be going into small equipment and then into the drone program. The National Police Week and annual awards are going into employee recognition rewards. We had a lot of discussion on that IACP consultant for the $100,000 that we're going to appropriate into next year's budget for the watch command position, the lieutenant position on that. We've purchased 10 chairs that were needed to replace old worn out chairs in the records division. So
Obviously not in here.
You need to add.
increase that increase for 5820. Again, related to the 2 shelter officers, we had a reduction in the communications for their cell phone, the radio shops, for computers and radio equipment. And then we have several reclasses between accounts within the department. These are, as the commanders went through their budgets, saw where the monies, which accounts were over and which accounts they had a little bit of surplus in to cover those expenditures. So you'll see numerous reclasses throughout here in the public order unit, internal affairs, housing cards, special ops SWAT, special ops K9, special ops motor, unit. And then, for the chairs, we are having to use fund balance, 5820 for the fund balance, so that's the use of that. Then you'll see in the restricted allocations to fund balance, the 1,500 going towards the Halloween party, and then the 100,000 that's going to be appropriated for the watch command lieutenant position. So that covers most.
And let me make a comment on the chairs. I heard your comment how expensive it looks. And just so you know, our records folks, they are in those chairs the entire time, except for breaks. So you have to have some good quality chairs, and you know, like chairs like this, we just use them randomly, but they are chairs that they really need to have.
I thought they were gonna get that chair that you had.
I want to hear their sales pitch so I can take it across the street and try to get better chairs. It's complaining.
I just wanted to address that.
In the current precinct division, we are transferring $870 to cover additional costs for the drawers on the purchase of 8 workstations. This was those workstations were approved in the March quarterly amendments, but there was an additional $870 cost to add to that. In the Mill Creek precinct, again, this is related to the 2 shelter officers and the adjusted figures for those. The member fee is being reduced by $49,200. Uniforms is being reduced by $1,200, and then the transfer obviously is being reduced by $4,800. In the holiday precinct, we've got the security system that was approved in the March amendments has had some additional costs, more than they anticipated. So Holiday has approved the use of their fund balance for $2,500, an additional $2,500. In the March amendment, we had taken the expense out of small equipment. We are reclassing it now to capital purchases. So that was the $20,000 that was approved in March, and we're moving it now to capital purchases, and then again the additional $2,500 that's going to be that's needed to cover the costs. In the immigration canyons, this is just a reclass again from one account to another, and then the reason I just listed, if you'll notice the account numbers on the sides, they don't have a specific line item. That's because there were several of them. And so instead of listing, giving you 5 sheets of additional information, I summarized them all between that department. For the town of Brighton, we had some reclasses for $1,000 within that department. Going into the vehicle replacement fund, again, this is in relation to the 2 shelter officers. We are reducing the transfer that would have gone to fleet for $41,500, and also the capital outlay for $41,500. And then finally, in countywide services, under Metro Gang, Salt Lake Canyon Patrols, Salt Lake County Canyon Patrols, Search and Rescue, and SWAT, we had several reclass adjustments that we needed to make within those departments.
Right.
Oh, finally, the big one, and how we missed it, I have no clue. I think it's because we discussed it for so long, we just thought it had all been taken care of. It's your allocations for this fiscal year, your appropriation for the finding that we had in the audit. You had to have it for this year as well as next year. And so that does need to be included as a budget amendment for this year. But you're all aware of that. It's that this for fiscal year 23 would be your first appropriation, and then for fiscal year 24 was your second appropriation. So as a reminder to all of you, for Mill Creek, it was $440,957. For Holiday, it was $154,147. For Midvale, it was $329,241. For Slavisa overall, it was 507,915, and then for countywide, it was 358,65 for a total of 1,793,25. That does need to be included in this amendment. When you got your fund balances from Rick,
For that is.
yeah, this is the first half, and the second half is in next year's budget, yeah. This fiscal year, the first half payment. And when you did receive your fund balances from Rick, this was included in there. We just forgot to add it into the, or I just forgot to add it into the budget.
Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to go into the public hearing.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve these budget amendments. I do want to say in connection with that, though, that I appreciate flexibility of the department, of the officers, and of my fellow jurisdictions in UPD to allow Mill Creek to augment our patrol with 2 additional officers to serve the shelter. I don't know if those particular officers serve the shelter, because I know that the people that did that have been in our precinct for a while, but enabled us basically to beef up our patrol division and to enable us to concentrate some policing resources around the area of that shelter. And the result of that was actually, I think, a pretty successful shelter operation. And the crime stats based upon that patrol, crime stats for the radius within a half mile of that shelter location actually went down. If you consider, you know, I mean, it looks like it went slightly up if you consider the calls for service that were inside the shelter facility, but those are not community problems. So the community crime area actually went down as a result of those patrols. And in the survey that we did of our residents, both midway through and then afterwards, we heard back that people, like 80% of the people, said that things were somewhat or much better than what they expected. And some people said they didn't even know the shelter was there. So I appreciate the flexibility, and sorry that it's a headache to do the counting on that, to put them in and then take them out and all that. I also appreciate the flexibility of the officers that were willing to come and help us and then go back into the department. So nobody got ripped or anything like that. They just get shifted over and then absorbed back into other duties because of the open allocations that we have. Thanks.
We appreciate your.
To open a public hearing.
Oh, I guess we have to make a motion. All right, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, open public hearing and take any public comments. Have any public comments on this item?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
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 I will renew my motion to approve the budget.
I will second.
All right, public hearing is closed. We have a motion to approve the amendments and a second. Any further discussion?
Just a clarifying question regarding the 154.8 from Holiday. I assume that's just a book entry that will move the money from the precinct fund balance back to UPD. We're not going to receive a bill for that.
No, it's the
if you
use of
wanted
fund
to.
balance,
Yeah.
right? I think we had asked if you wanted to receive a bill or if you wanted to use your fund balance, and everyone decided to use.
Yeah, I just
Yes.
want to make sure we don't have to do anything at city level regarding the budget and whatnot. So, okay.
It just reduces your fund balance, and Rick did include that when he gave you your estimated fund balance at the end of the year.
And your motion amendments to include that. Perfect. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. You. Item 8, fiscal year 2023 to 2024 pay scale. Chief Beckman.
Good morning. So, attached to your packets is the adjustments that we've made to both the sworn and civilian pay scales. Included in those adjustments are approved 2.75% merit increases for those employees that are still in the merit steps. Also included is a 3% cost of living adjustment for all UPD employees. Additionally, we have a 3% increase for the officer rank, 1% increase for sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and deputy chief positions. And then we also have a 5% increase for the chief of police. And this is to bring those positions into that range of that top 3 range that we've been striving to keep our pay in line with. So I don't know if there's any questions or anything that I can clarify.
This brings all ranks into that. Every rank is at the top 3.
Right. Now that could change with the new budgets coming out. So, but it's kind of, it's like trying to hit a moving aircraft carrier. But yes, we do believe that it positions us in a strong position in the market. It certainly keeps us competitive, even if we are 1 or 2 positions. We're talking cents instead of dollars, like the conversations we're having years ago.
Total compensation for an officer level that's still in the step plan. 8.75.
Correct. Yes, that would be.
That's the bulk of the organization, right? That's the rank with the most.
That is, yes, that is correct.
Any other questions or comments for Chief Becker?
Just one on your crossing guards, is that included in here?
The crossing guards would be included in our civilian pay scale. They are in there, but they're kind of a little bit different because they're not considered full-time employees. So there was an adjustment to the crossing guard pay, but it doesn't coincide with the full-time employees. So there was an increase there.
He's going from like 16 to 21.
Yeah, it was a substantial increase. Yeah, to keep us competitive with a lot of the other agencies. That adjustment was made. We also approved, it's not in here because it didn't adjust our pay scales, but a substantial amount was approved to their scale. Now it doesn't adjust the pay scales because we wanted to get all those employees corrected and then readdress this next year with where they are in the market. But before we could do a thorough market analysis, we needed to make those corrections. So that's not reflected in here because it doesn't change the civilian pay scale. But there will be a substantial number of civilian employees that will be looking at increases, and those percentages are based upon how far they are out based on years of service.
Okay, unless there are further questions, we do need to have a public hearing.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to second and second in discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, well, public hearing, do we have any public comments on this item? Seeing none,
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
we have a motion to close public hearing. Second. And a second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is closed. Are there any further comments, discussion before we adopt resolution 3065?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve resolution 23-06-05. Adoption of the FY 23-24 pay scale.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you. All right, item 9, adoption of fiscal year 2023 to 2024.
While they're handing out the budget for us, I'll just get started. So, this year's budget was a little bit challenging because, as you know, Debbie came in 6 months ago, and I just have to, comment on how wonderful she has been to be able to
figure all of this out, with the UPD. It's a little confusing when people first come into the organization to figure out how we operate, but she's done a fantastic job. Her and her entire team, which is super impressive, and I just wanted to say thank you to them before we get started. Miss Stafford, you know people. Sure. No, I'll tell you later.
Yeah.
Okay? But with this budget, this is going to be the last budget that will include the countywide services and the statutory duties, because the goal is to have the sheriff move over to the county. I just wanted to remind you of that. With this budget, we did try as the best we could to standard that 4% cap. So that was very helpful that the board actually gave us a percentage to, you know, give us the goal to work for. And I think we've met that. So I'm, you know, thankful to our commanders and all our employees that have contributed to trying to get us to be able to balance the budget at that 4% cap. And, you know, the budget, it does include the increases for the sworn and the civilians. And you've seen all this before. This budget also does include the new chief of reorganization and also the temporary reassignment of the chief of police and deputy chief and a lieutenant, where we're going to be moving people around. You haven't seen any transfer orders or anything because this is funded until July 1. What we've been doing temporarily is just adding it to everybody's workload. But this really doesn't get funded until July 1. So you'll see those transfer lists coming out pretty quick. And you know, if you have any questions on that, that was including the undersheriff's compensation, where we're moving that out of the budget as well. And then over, you know, the last 6 years, basically what we've tried to do is take the budget that we had. If you look in 2017, what the budget looked like, and I know some of you on the board were around back then, I really think that we've done a great job of making this budget more transparent and more understandable, and being able to view it and read it and have notes that tell you where all the money is being spent. And I just wanted, you know, we've had 2 great CFOs helping do that in the last, since 2017. And, you know, we owe them a lot for getting us there, especially for transparency. I mean, it's so important for you guys to be able to see these numbers. And I really think this budget is an example of great transparency, working together as a team. And with the help of the board, I also want to thank the board for always supporting the officers and their compensation. You know, sometimes it's not easy when we come up here and try to explain to you why we feel like they need more and more, but you have always been, you know, very agreeable or supportive to that. And just want to give kudos to you as well for working with us and hearing about our officers the way that you do. It shows. Thank you.
Yeah, so with that, the 100 budget was adopted on May 18th. We have had some amendments that we've had to make since then. That includes the half-year funding of the watch command lieutenant position, which has now been added in. And then also the funding of 1 officer as the magnet precinct. All of these have been brought to the board previously and approved. So those are now included in here. This final budget does reflect an increase of $4,878,000, or 3.81% over last year's year budget. And this does fall within that 4% maximum that the board assigned us to on March 19th of this year. If you go into the page right behind the budget calendar, probably about 3 pages in, It gives the total overall look of the final budget. And then you'll see on the right-hand corner, the overall percentage increase is 7.78%. That's because it includes your use of fund balance now. Without your use of the fund balance, we were at 3.81%. Then when we put in what your use is, it reduces that percentage there. So if, in case you're looking for that 3.81%, it won't be in here because it's now reflecting your use balance.
I have that exact question.
So that I wanted to make sure that you understood that. And then, other than that, we haven't made any changes since the tentative budget. As the sheriff pointed out, she listed all of the items that is included in here. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
These comments from the board.
I appreciate the fact that you followed our request to bring us a budget that's under the 4% and it's affordable for our communities, particularly given that the experience we had last year with salary increases. It's much appreciated.
And to tell you, that is very helpful to us so that it can get, so we can determine what directions we want to go, where we've got to look at possible cuts and where we need to stay within that limit. So it's hard to prepare a budget when you don't have that guidance. And so your guys' guidance is very helpful and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, if there are not further comments or questions, we have another public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to open the public hearing on the fiscal 2024.
Second.
So a motion and a second to go into public hearing into discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we're moving to public hearing. Do you have any public comment on this item? Twice.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Great, we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any further discussion? Questions? Otherwise, I entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the budget for fiscal year 2023.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes.
Thank you. Thank you for your grace.
I'll tell you, every year I go through this process and then every year when the final one is adopted, I feel like, the last day when you graduated from high school.
Every finance director.
Yeah, they relate, they totally relate.
Take a day off.
All right, item 10, upcoming meetings. We've got the Office of the Sheriff Annual Awards on Wednesday. Do you want to say?
Yes, we just invite all of you. We're gonna do it the same way we did last year. It'll be over here by the pond. And people are gonna come through, not stay, but get their awards and be able to leave after they get their awards. So we have a lot of awards this year. But you're always welcome to come and listen to some incredible stories.
I hope that you have arranged this year to not have it rain and not have it be too hot.
I do my best. Yeah, but we will have some treats for you. That helps.
And then our July 5th UPD board work session. Are we all okay with keeping it on that date, just being right after the 4th of July? Or we going to move that?
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with moving. I won't be here. So.
Yeah.
We're good to just keep it then. Great. All right. Item 11, approval of the May 18th, 2023 board meeting minutes. Have a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
I have a motion from W. Mayor Linda. Second from Mayor Silvestrini. Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you. And any other business?
So I just, we don't have this on as an agenda item, but I just thought that actually, even for the benefit of the department and our officers who may be listening to this meeting either now or on the recording, the board is continuing to try to work in multiple ways to try to address the reorganization problem of the department. The three cities had a meeting with Chief Mazarin about this issue. And I know that that Metro Townships, you guys can talk about this more than I can, but I just want to say that they approached an interim committee of the legislature to propose legislation to enable them to be transformed from Metro Townships to either cities or towns, depending upon population. And that discussion, I think, was favorably received, and the committee decided to open up an interim committee bill file. So there will be some legislation that comes out on that. And that, as I understand, the purpose of that conversion is to enable the townships as cities or towns to have more flexibility to be able to levy certain kinds of taxes that they currently can't do as Metro Townships, but like a property tax. So the reason to be doing that, as I understand it, would be to be able to properly fund police. And there's still a lot of questions up in the air about exactly how that would work, as Lisa would work. But we are all trying to pull together to stay together and to figure out ways to make this work from a financial standpoint, to the extent that there are hurdles given the current legal framework. So I commend everybody for that, and also for the, I think, open communication that we've had to date about that. It's as anybody that's got paying attention to this knows this is a super complicated thing between that and then, you know, what this would look like when the sheriff takes her statutory duties or countywide services out of the department. So, but I just want the rank and file to know that I know it's hard to be patient, and I know that there's stuff going on that not everybody can know about, and there are things going on that we don't even know the outcome of, but we are dedicated to making progress on this, and I think we're all pulling together.
Thank you, Mayor. You're exactly right. It's important for everybody to know these conversations are constantly happening, and everybody's working hard behind the scenes to try to make sure that we can continue to support law enforcement in our communities.
I'll speak on behalf of Magna. There is no agenda behind Magna's full incorporation. We were headed down that road before 374 even came into play. That was in our future and on our horizon. It evens the playing field. It gives us multiple funding sources to help pay for law enforcement. As you know, Slovisa was bumping up against that cap. Once that cap is insufficient, we needed to have other. We have the ability to levy franchise taxes, and incorporating it and becoming a city will give us two additional things: the ability to levy a property tax within Magna, as well as to elect our mayor at large. Those are the only two agendas. So I don't know, I hope nobody's reading any more into that. That is just, that's our objective.
Thank you. Any other business?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to add, I appreciate the meeting with the cities. So the townships know I'm also starting to schedule meetings to meet the townships to kind of just understand where you're at and to answer any questions you may have. I would love to meet with you there.
Happy to.
Councilman Brad. So that we're all in this together. So team effort, meet everyone's interests and needs. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Just have one thing. So on the work session, July 5th, is there anything that you want to see on the agenda? We've just kind of been putting, discussions about transition, things like that. So is there anything specific you want on the agenda?
It would be great to get an update from the county. I mean, I know that the county our county mayor's office has had meetings with the townships. There have not been meetings like that with the cities. I'd like to know, have an update from the county and or the sheriff, both of you, about where you are on your planning, what you're doing. We had talked previously about trying to get by July 1st, get to the idea of commitment about what the office is going to do. So an update to us on that would be, I think, would be appropriate. And I know that there's still balls in the air. And maybe final decisions haven't been made, but at least where are we headed with that? What are you thinking?
I can add to that. We're making a lot of progress on modeling out our new sheriff's law enforcement agency. Have had 2 meetings in the last 2 weeks, about probably 4 hours worth with under sheriff, and we're making progress on it. As you all know, it's very complicated decision making, and also for us, because we have existing sheriff's office, we have to incorporate a new law enforcement arm into it. So I feel like we're moving well, and we'll keep you updated as we continue to move through it.
At least a snapshot of where you are. We final, but what the thinking is and all that, so we can influence that if we think we see it heading in the wrong direction, or applaud you if it's going the way we want to.
I don't know if it's gonna go in any direction that any of us wanted, but
I know.
we have to just deal with what we have now. But yeah, we're happy to discuss that at the work session. Then we'll have an update from Chief Nazarene as well, what he's doing. I just didn't know if it's anything else, but that helps if you want to hear from the county too. Find somebody to come over here and speak up. Yeah,
We'll do it.
we'll get it done.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Last chance, other business.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. There's a second. Second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.